I'm Dr. John Nourse. I'm the chair of the geology department, and I've been chair for 12 years now. And I've gotten to meet quite a few of our students over the years. In fact, here's a small group of us right behind me. This is one of my favorite field areas. We're out in the place called the Rand Mountains. We're investigating a really well exposed fault zone. And so you can see some of my students here, along with my dog, Gordy, who most of my students get to meet eventually. But yeah, so the geology department it's relatively small in terms of the College of Science. We've been bouncing around between about 100 and 120 majors. In the last few years, we've been as populated as maybe 145, 150 majors in the past. But we pride ourselves in giving students training to adapt to all kinds of different careers in the geosciences. And we require, I guess we're probably the only department that requires coursework in all the other departments. We require a year of calculus, a year of chemistry, a year of physics, a biology course. I guess we don't really require a computer science class unless you're inclined to the geophysics emphasis. So our program includes 3 emphasis areas. There's the traditional geology emphasis, which is maybe a little bit more field-based and has a lot of the traditional classes on rocks and minerals and geological mapping. And then we have the geophysics earth exploration emphasis, which focuses on typically on geologic hazards, earthquake-related hazards, and also site investigations, where students they go out in the field and they do surveys, geophysical surveys of sites to try to figure out what's going on in the first 30 meters or so of the ground, which is really important when it comes to building sites and any kind of construction that goes on. And then we have our third emphasis is the environmental resources emphasis, which is a little more interdisciplinary, and we allow students to take courses from other departments, like in other colleges, like geography. There's an environmental biology class they're allowed to take. Some of them take engineering courses, some of them take urban planning courses. So those are all part of the upper division electives that are associated with these emphasis areas. And we pride ourselves in getting good jobs for our students. We think we prepare them very well for careers in the geoscience, and we keep in touch with our majors over the years. We do have a couple of clubs. We have a geology club and we have a geophysics club. So we encourage all of our students to get involved with those clubs. I know the geology club they do a yearly field trip to Tucson, Arizona, to the Gem and Minerals show. So if you like gems and minerals, that's a great place it's a good club to join. They also do a lot of hikes and various activities. Sometimes they've been involved with conservation activities. Depends on what that particular group is doing each year. And then the geophysics group, they're a little bit more focused on quantitative work, geophysics studies, and there's a special conference called the Seismological Society of America. A lot of these students go to each year. I guess probably the most important thing is get to know your fellow students and also the faculty members. We're like I say, a relatively small department. There's 6 of us who are full-time tenure track faculty, and our classes are small enough that if you take the initiative, we encourage you to meet us and talk to us, after class or maybe during the laboratory sessions, just to find out a little bit about what we do and what kind of projects we might have. And because we're all interested in working with students, and we encourage research projects. We also encourage students to be peer mentors for some of our, if you're a more advanced student, a junior, senior, then we like to have those students kind of help out the younger students. We have a computer lab that's housed in the ground floor of building 4. It holds about 20 well, I think there's 15 workstations, but sometimes there's been as many as 30 or so of our majors in there during finals week. But yeah, our students like to interact, and if we encourage you to get to know your peers, your student peers. They have a lot of tips for how to succeed in your coursework, and a lot of times they'll form study groups, which can be helpful when it comes to exam time. And everybody's sort of they're in the same boat there. Everybody wants to get their geology degree. So I guess maybe the other a bit of advice for both freshmen and transfers is it's sort of a balancing act between taking a lot of classes to get finished in a hurry and maintaining that GPA, because you want to get good grades. You'll learn through the orientation that you're required to graduate with a 2.0 GPA. But it's it's helpful to be more up in the 3 in the B range, 3 or so, when it comes to looking for jobs and going on to graduate school. So yeah, especially during your first year or so, you want to make sure you really crank up that GPA, just in case you have a little bit of trouble. Everybody has a bad quarter bad semester once in a while, so you want to have a little bit of a cushion there. So, I mean, those are the main words of advice. Oh, the other word of advice would be check your email regularly, because you get information from me as department chair and from the university that will save you a lot of grief if you just, well, not just grief, but it makes you aware of deadlines. You don't want to miss certain deadlines. They're very important. You want to make sure you register for your courses on time. But I send out regularly. I send out advertisements from some of our industry and alumni who are looking for people to hire, and and usually a lot of times it's kind of first come first serve. They're looking for responses, so you want to jump on those opportunities as fast as you can. And so yeah, check your email regularly, and make sure most of you use smartphones. Make sure that your Cal Poly email address forwards directly to your phone, because if there's a delay there, you could miss out on an opportunity. We have 6 faculty, including myself. We're all from good school. We have PhDs from what we think are excellent schools, and we're all very interested in engaging students in our teaching and our research. So let me start with Dr. Yasha Pal. She's our geophysicist, and she sort of developed the geophysics emphasis area when she joined us about 14 years ago. She joined us, and she supervises all kinds of students on projects that are related to geophysics. A lot of them are surveys, field surveys of sites out, all over the place, Southern California, or, the LA Basin. She's got projects that are pretty accessible, pretty easy to get to. And some of her students go out to the Mojave Desert. And Yasha also is, well, yeah, she's really well connected to the industry and to people at Caltech and at JPL, because her PhD was from Caltech. So she has some good connections with those that are interested, not just in seismological research, but also planetary science. And I could say lots more about Yasha. She's very productive and very approachable. I regularly see her and students in her office getting advice. Of course, this last year nobody has been in the office. But, that's going to change soon. And we have Nick Van Bure. He's our mineralogist, petrologist, kind of tectonics and structural geology. He's got a lot of specialties in the hard rock area. He actually has a bachelor's degree from Caltech and a PhD from Stanford. And he, one noteworthy thing about him is he was awarded a sabbatical for next winter. He's going to do a geotrek across the Mojave Desert, about a 600-mile walk and through a very remote area of the Mojave Desert, and he's going to film himself doing this trek and post it, post live videos on some kind of blog. And I think it eventually will be recorded and put on our website. So Nick is a real, ambitious and energetic individual. He's, I guess, one of the things that he brought to the department was his knowledge of geochronology, and he's helped me a lot. I've developed some projects with him and learned how to use some of the lab equipment that came along with his hire. And we're both of us are very much involved with doing radiometric dating of rocks to figure out the geologic events in the geologic past. And we do most of the preparation work here at Cal Poly. And then when it comes to do the analyses, we basically separate this mineral called zircon. And we take the zircons, we have to melt them into this plastic epoxy melts. And then we take those either to Cal State Northridge or to Stanford University to run the analyses. 'Cause in order to get the age dates, you need a mass spectrometer. Yeah, Nick is very strongly involved with geochronology and tectonics research, trying to reconstruct what the Earth used to look like. Because one of the kind of I don't know what you call it. The laws of geology is that the history repeats itself, or the past is the key. The present is the key to the past, or the past is the key to the present. So we were really interested in looking what's going on in the past. Then we have Stephen Osborne. He's our hydrogeologist, hydrogeochemist, and he's got a lab here that involves, generally, our biggest interest is doing chemical analyses of water samples, and this is all related to the environmental science field, and trying to preserve our high quality water supplies, and also identify areas that are subject to contamination. So he's set up here with his lab to measure the various anions and cations that are dissolved in water, to comment on the water quality. I know he's been involved with it, and I've helped him. I've done a lot of sort of joint projects with Stephen Osborne, with students going up into the mountains to measure spring and stream flow, collect water samples, and try to figure out why you get these certain chemical anomalies in the places that you do. So yeah, Stephen's we all balance each other out with our different research areas. So he's probably more prone to students in the environmental resources emphasis. And we have Brian Murray, who he's our most recent hire, and he's a specialist in sedimentary geology and also in volcanology. His PhD was actually conducted down in Mexico, as was mine, actually. I worked down there in Sonora in the 1980s to spend a lot of time working in this real remote area of northern Mexico. But anyway, Brian is he's involved with looking at volcanic processes, mostly during the more recent tertiary and quaternary period of Southern California history. And he's also he's our expert in sedimentary rocks. So he teaches a number of courses and has research projects where students go out and look at sedimentary rocks. There's not a lot of limestones or carbonates in this part of the world, but we have a lot of sandstones and conglomerates. And there's those rocks actually contain information about if you look at the grains that are in a sandstone or in a cobbles or pebbles in a conglomerate, you can say a lot about what was being eroded at the time that those sediments were laid down. And it tells you kind of what were the mountains that existed at that time and where were they? What direction were the sediments transported? And then we have Dr. Marshall, Dr. Jeff Marshall. He's our most senior faculty member, aside from myself. His primary interests are coastal geomorphology as it applies to the tectonic uplift of the coastline associated with recent earthquakes. So he's actually got two big study areas that spends most of his time working with. One of them is Costa Rica, and the other is in New Zealand. And both these areas have suffered magnitude 8 earthquakes recently. And also there's a record of these big earthquakes happening in the past 100 years or so. So what Dr. Marshall does is he takes his students to these areas and they map out what basically are uplifted shorelines of areas that used to be sitting below at sea level, and then due to the convergent, these are all subduction related earthquakes, but due to the convergent tectonics of the area, the shorelines are uplifted sequentially over time. So oftentimes uplifted many times, and then he can date these shorelines and figure out the sequence of earthquakes that cause their uplift. So that's my 5 colleagues and myself. For me, I guess I'm kind of a generalist. I've been here 32 years and I've taught, I think, something like 25 courses for this department, and so I have my finger in all sorts of areas. And more recently I've been involved with geochronology project with Nick Van Bure, and also with the mining industry. I did a number of projects down in Sonora recently, well, in the mid 2005 to 2012. I did some work with the mining industry in Northwest Sonora, so I'm interested in the gold belt. There's a very lucrative area in Northwest Sonora that's been a productive source of gold and silver and other precious metals. But I also teach the engineering geology course regularly, and a lot of our geological mapping courses. There's all these different sites, places that are closer to home, the San Gabriel Mountains, the Mojave Desert. And I've got a number of students working on projects right in our backyard in the San Gabriel Mountains. It's a really accessible place to go. And so we're learning a lot, even though it's really close to this highly populated area, and there's a lot of geology departments down here. A lot of people have avoided the San Gabriel Mountains because there's presumably too kind of complex to study, but we're working things out. Anyway, so there's that, and I've done hydrogeology studies. I'm always interested in water, and I'm interested in precipitation, rainfall. And so, yeah, generally, I'm a generalist. The only thing I'm not really very good at is geophysics. I kind of leave that to Dr. Paulette. So up until this last academic year, when everything went virtual, we require all of our majors to meet with the faculty advisor before each term. And it used to be, when we were in quarters, we would meet 3 times a year. Now we meet twice a year. So before you're allowed to register, you have to meet with a faculty advisor and review your curriculum progress. So we divide the students up fairly equally between the faculty members, and I'm sort of the overseer. I have my group of students, but also any questions that are complicated, they come to me. So one of the things we do with our advising is we've created this thing called a degree progress spreadsheet that allows students, as they take their coursework, to fill in their grades, or if they're just taking it currently, we have them fill in an IP for in progress. And this spreadsheet, basically, it's our curriculum sheet, and it adds up the units that you've earned so far. So when you're advising, you meet with your advisor, you can actually, you can look at the advisor can look at your spreadsheet and know exactly where you are in the curriculum. And then knowing what courses are going to be offered the next term, they give you advice about which ones to take. So that was, we developed that about 5 years ago, and it's been really successful. And so, it's good practice for everybody to just, every time their grades come out at the end of the term, update the spreadsheet. And it's also helpful for the advising center because, they don't have to dig as deeply to figure out where you are with your program. So we have these regular meetings. We also, we have seminars we do a seminar each year. Actually, last year we did two, one during fall, one during spring, that gives students heads up about which classes are being offered and which ones are likely to fill up fast. So kind of alerts people to be watching their registration appointments. And we also have a system for petitions. This is actually really important for a lot of the transfer students, because many of you come to Cal Poly and you have credit in, say, physical geology lab, or you may have credit in a field mapping course or field methods course that count towards our degree in it. And so that doesn't actually automatically get transferred into your Cal Poly system immediately. So it's a lot of times it takes a petition, and so we have that all worked out. You just meet with your advisor. The advisor files a petition to substitute that coursework. So we're all able to write petitions for our students. There's only 6 of us faculty, so we know the petition system really well, and that should save you time in terms of progressing through your degree. Because it's important to have all these units counting, so then you get priority for registering for courses as you get more units. And how do students reach out for advising help? Well, a lot of times they'll send me messages and I'll respond right away. And all the faculty are pretty responsive. You're assigned an academic advisor. After orientation, we just divide you up kind of well, not really randomly. We give you a little quiz, not a quiz, questionnaire about what your interests are. And, so if you indicate you're interested in earthquakes, then we probably assign you to Dr. Paulette. If you're interested in tectonics and structural, we might assign you to either me or Nick Van Bure. If you're interested in water, hydrogeology, we'd assign you to Osborne. So you're assigned an academic advisor, and you're just expected to communicate with your advisor before it comes to registration time. And of course, I send out all these reminders. It's, again, you want to check your emails often, because I'll send out reminders to our students. Okay, registration for next term is now approaching. You need to meet with your academic advisor, very soon, so that your advising hold can be cleared and you're able to register for your classes. Okay, so we have a pretty good system. And also I should say that the College of Science Advising Center has been really helpful. They help us quite a bit with general education requirements, because there's a lot of little tricks that we're not really well versed with. They also help us with students who are ready to graduate or close to graduation. Sometimes there's just a few things that have to be little bits that have to be cleaned up before you can graduate. I guess maybe one thing to mention, well, 2 things. First of all, we have a website that all of you should be familiar with. I don't have a way to put in the address right here, but you'll be getting the address during the orientation session. So that website gives you a lot more vivid illustrations of what we do as a department. It's pretty, it's purposely set up to be, show a lot of pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. And we update information regularly in there. And then the other thing I should mention is we have a really strong alumni base. And we do every year we do an alumni newsletter for our graduates. And if anybody's graduated since the 1970s. So we've got a large alumni base, and many of them have been coming through over the years with donations, contributions to the department that have been helpful. We have little pots of money here and there that are available to support students traveling to conferences, students who want to do research projects. We can pay for gas, we can pay for the costs of doing laboratory analyses. We can sometimes pay for student assistantships or peer mentorships. So this alumni base has been a real strong part of the department. And not only that, some of the alums who may not be contributing a lot of funds to the department, they're in regular touch with us about job opportunities. So there's quite a network there in terms of careers in geology. When things come up there, I can't tell you how many times somebody's called me up, said, hey John, I'm looking for a really high quality student who's motivated and can be easily trained, and got some ideas if you could pass this job announcement out to people. So we do that happens all the time, and it's true that a lot of our Cal Poly graduates like to hire Cal Poly students as interns, and they also like to hire them when they're recently graduated. Okay, so that's I think that's the main things to get across. That I just encourage you to when we're back face to face, which will actually be this fall, make an effort to meet your faculty. In fact, we're all of us are chomping at the bit to have a little picnic somewhere. We'll probably go to a park and set up the barbecue, and we want to get all of our current students together and some of our alums, because it's just been so long that we haven't had any real, in-person interaction. So that'll happen as soon as we're, legally allowed to, gather out in a park somewhere. I think those times are coming soon. So we look forward to meeting you then.